the house.
I call to order this regular meeting of the Navasota Planning and Zoning Commission for August 8th, 2024. If you would, as you're able, please rise for the invocation and the pledge. And if you haven't already silenced your cell phones, please do so at this time. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening to conduct some very important business. Please direct us in the right direction for all of these things that we have to consider. We ask that you bless the city of Navasota, its citizens, and the people of Texas and the United States. All this we ask through Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda item number 3, remarks of visitors. We have anybody registered, Luca?
No, sir.
So that brings us to agenda item number 4, conduct a public hearing for the purpose of receiving public comment and testimony regarding a conditional use permit application submitted by the city of Navasota for the property located at the southwest corner of Farquhar and Holland Streets in Navasota, Grimes County, Texas 77868, legally described as H&TC Block 107, Lots 11 and 12. The conditional use permit application requests to allow for parking as a primary use, a conditional use listed under Article 13, Central Business District. And we will call this public hearing to order at 6:02 p.m.
Mr. Chairman, Planning and Zoning Commission, again, just to summarize, really kind of similar to what you just read. Conditional use permit application has been initiated by the city. There's actually not a resident this time, it's the city itself. So the proposed parking area is located in the Central Business District, where parking as a primary use is a conditional use, which means it requires P&Z and council approval, and that's done via an ordinance. And so what's voted on tonight, what's recommended on tonight, will be reflected in an ordinance that'll eventually make its way to council on the 26th of August. I do want to give kudos to John. He's very talented, and he actually put the site plan together really quickly and efficiently, and so it gives us a good visual of what's in the future and what's possible on this lot. I know that this lot in particular is to directly benefit the Navasota Police Department. Parking continues to be a concern in downtown, and so we're trying to find and alleviate ways to increase that available spaces, and so this is actually going to be for Navasota PD. I know Chief Mize is here to answer any questions you may have, and John and Jason and whoever can.
So we're not voting on a site plan, we're just voting to
Conditional
grant the
use.
conditional use permit.
Well, it's both. It's both. The site plan itself is attached to the conditional use permit, and so it uses it to reference. It's an exhibit, right? It's an exhibit to that ordinance.
What's the surface going to be?
Let me see.
It says non-rigid gravel.
Yes, non-rigid gravel. That's correct.
Okay.
Explain that, please.
Yeah. So it moves around when you drive over it? Is that what that means?
So good evening, John McKay, graduate engineer. So what we're looking at for surfacing this, we're looking at surfacing it with asphalt millings. It looks fairly similar, but better put to what's out there. It looks like asphalt, but really you can think of it as that gravel type surfacing underneath it. We view that as valid because this is going to be, if you look at the next page in your packet beyond this, part of this, the issue going on with this is that it will be privacy fenced. That's for the security reasons. So inside that blue line, that fenced area, the whole purpose is to allow for a private area for police and set up, etc. So that parking surface won't be seen except when that gate is open.
What about when it comes to ADA regulations with the loose gravel?
Loose gravel, we have an eventual future plan to go ahead and come back in with a rigid pavement. This is temporary at this time. We do have a space for the ADA. I haven't looked at, but I believe loose gravel can be ADA compliant as long as you get your grading right, and we have made sure we've got that. Maybe. So I haven't looked into it, because again, this is kind of temporary, it's employee only. Anyone who would need access to this would need access to City Hall, where we do provide ADA parking. This ADA parking here, this design's gone through multiple iterations as to what's going on, and, eventual far-reaching future plans. We wanted to make sure we didn't forget that we needed that when one day, hopefully, this would turn into concrete.
What's the preparation before you dump 20 yards of asphalt shavings?
So we're going to be working with our street department. We're going to be, there's obviously some low spots there. We're bringing in some crushed limestone base, compacted it down just like you would anywhere else, for those to make sure that we get it to grade up and drain off into those driveways as needed, to get that grading back away from there. And then we're looking at an inch and a half worth of asphalt millings.
So whenever the city decides to fund the completion of this project, the asphalt millings will be removed, the compaction will remain, and concrete would go on top?
No, sir. There's actually, that is an existing old parking lot it looks to have been mostly asphalt millings back in the day. There's some really old, really hard curb that our guys had fun with the dozer with. All of that's going to have to go out, because we don't have to even the existing unraised surface 6 inches.
Go out
level.
Prior to your dumping of these millings, or?
No, prior to the concrete one day.
Okay.
So that would be a 6-inch deep concrete pad. So that, when we do get that as a funded item, you're going to have to remove 6 inches worth of material, and you don't see 6 inches between that sidewalk and the existing surface now. So we're going to be excavating what's there, what you see now, what we put in, all that will have to get excavated. Groundwork kind of stabilized a bit, and concrete back in.
So you pay to put it down, and then X amount of years later, we pay to take it up?
Yes, sir. We're planning to spend about $4,000 on this milling, because we're utilizing our own labor. So it's a minor cost now to allow us to provide a workable surface behind a privacy fence for the police department now to serve the needs that we have.
Is this land already owned by the city?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
What about landscaping? I don't see anything in your site plan for landscaping.
I do not have anything in my lights.
Why not? Why when somebody else comes and is gonna build something, we tell them they have to have landscaping and they bring that, but the city, we don't have to?
Yeah, I think it goes, if you pull up the central business district off-street parking standards, neither one of these comply.
Okay.
That's my biggest issue. Because the city doesn't have money to finish it now. What if a business owner doesn't have money to finish their lot? Are we gonna let them do the same thing? Put asphalt millings and then at their leisure replace it? What standard are we setting for everybody else?
Not to put you in the hot seat.
I know, I feel a little
You just stood up and said, I'm gonna run this project, and we're throwing it at you. I would've let Chief talk first, but.
We all want parking, but it's like, if we gotta hold everyone to the same standard.
So
And
I think-
that's the issue.
I think one thing to note about this is that since it is going to be completely fenced and screened, it's not like your typical parking lot where you would provide landscape islands and other things because it's going to be visible to the public. This is basically a wall without saying it's a wall, but it's completely
Which we
enclosed.
wouldn't let anybody put anywhere else in the central business district.
Right.
Exactly.
A wall. I think the hotel put a nice wrought iron fence in, and but that's the expectation. That's why I would ask a couple questions of Chief.
Right, yeah.
Mark Vice, Chief of Police.
So, first of all, how many officers do we have on staff right now?
We have 38 employees.
38? What's the largest shift that you have?
Well, right now, as a.
I mean, say like the day shift when all your, admin people are here from 8 to 5 or,
Close to 19.
as much as I respect and appreciate the police department, can you tell me why you would be the only city employees that would be given a closed parking lot compared to the rest of the city staff?
Well,
Pass.
So we're in the process of entering into an agreement with the adjacent property owner across the street, Neil Martinson with State Farm, for actual city employee staffing, parking on his facility Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. The idea was to purchase this property to slowly move the PD over to have its own parking lot, so for privacy, as well as to remove all the parking from the south side so that residents and visitors to City Hall have a place to park. When you take all of the staffing that is around City Hall, the parking, there is nowhere for residents to park. Right now, there's hardly anybody can even park at the post office. So this was a solution that we found to move all of the patrol units. Not all the patrol units are take-home vehicles. We only have, I don't even know how many, several that are take-home. So if you leave out today, you'll see the parking of all the vehicles there on the side. So that was the idea behind putting them behind, closing it up. We can definitely put a wrought iron fence there. That was just trying to shield that from the view, but whatever the...
Well, they're not shielded from view now, right?
But they're not.
So is the city looking at this as an aesthetic issue where we have a whole bunch of patrol cars sitting in one location? Or is it being looked at as a property safety maintenance issue? And then I would ask, what's being done to vehicles that are parked now? Are we having damage and stuff like that?
Correct. So I'm not familiar if you're familiar with what we call First Amendment auditors. So there's a First Amendment auditor group. That means you have anybody from the public can go, if anywhere is on public space that they're allowed to publicly enter into, they can film, take video of whatever they want to. And so ideally is to move the police cars over there to that location so that those officers, when a First Amendment auditor comes, that they prevent them because it is a private parking lot. They have no access over there. And those officers can do their business, what they need to in their vehicles without having to be filmed and videoed when they're trying to do their business. We've had several cases here in City Hall where that's occurred. On the second floor, we actually had to put up some screened windows. So if you go on our second floor now, we've had to put locked doors on there because the First Amendment auditors, they'll come in, and if the doors are open, they can come into your office and film you while you're doing your job. And that's just, we're trying to figure out a way that we can prevent some of this from occurring, that we can allow our officers to do what they need to do in the privacy of their vehicles. And by putting that privacy fence up and allowing that, that's a way that we found a way around having to do that.
I suspect that's because you're calling their vehicles mobile offices?
It's in the public space, so right now, if your vehicle's out there, they can come out there. If you have anything on your front seat of your vehicle that you don't want somebody to see, whether it's a credit card number, checkbook account, whatever you have in your vehicle, they can film that. And they put that up on YouTube. It is visible. So we just think that it's best for the police department, where anything in there, whether it's using any of their equipment that's available, if they have their computers up that has information, sensitive data on it, that's not visible for anybody coming up and filming that.
Would it not be incumbent upon the employee, officer to remove this stuff so that, isn't that their responsibility? Why are we spoon feeding them?
So, again, the officer can only do so much, but there is First Amendment rights, and they can film whatever you're doing. So if we have an officer that's out here, right here out in front of here, that's doing a traffic stop, they can come up as close as the officers will allow them and film what's going on. And so, again, it's just for the protection of our officers. I understand that there is some, I wouldn't call it spoon feeding, but it's a way to help prevent future occurrences with this happening.
Now, a lot of that equipment is attached to the vehicle, correct?
Correct.
It's not very mobile, a lot of that equipment.
Again, I'm not a police officer, I'll defer that to the chief on those type things, but again, the idea is to move the police department over to have its own area there that's safe and secure for the equipment that's in those vehicles. I mean, those vehicles, again, have sensitive data as well as ammunition, guns, and those type things, and so we just thought having a secure facility for that. Most police departments have secured parking lots for their police department.
And then my next question is, so that's for the police vehicles, then where would the employees, the police officers be parking?
So ideally, we were hoping that they would actually be able to park their vehicles in there, get into their patrol vehicle and then leave. But depending on the number of vehicles that we have, that might not be an option. But that was the idea in the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm all for the points you laid out for security, but it all goes back to if the layman business developer can't build it the way you're suggesting that you want to build it, then why do we have the central business guidelines of off-street parking?
And what's at this point, what we have is a temporary fence that's more like a construction fence with sandbag weights or something holding it down. What's holding this fence down? Are you putting it in the ground?
That's
This is
Yeah.
actually,
Yeah,
it's
it's
actually a full
slatted.
set, it's a full set, construction, vinyl coated black, chain link fence. set
And the
in-
posts
set
are mounted how?
in concrete in the ground. This is our permanent, this is intended to be our permanent fence.
Why not do something that fits into downtown guidelines and, I mean,
Sorry, go ahead.
it looks like a construction fence. Why not do a cedar picket fence and landscaping?
The
like everybody else
argument
has?
would be that as long as there's a crack, somebody's gonna put a camera in it. Is that what?
I mean, again, I'm open to anything. I mean, whatever that the commission and council decides, we'll move forward with it. Ideally, we need a private, fenced-in parking lot for police department. And whatever that comes up to, ultimately, that's what we're asking for.
Well, and I kind of remember Frank's down on LaSalle.
Right.
And, and we went through a little bit of an exercise, and we didn't allow them a permeable fence that had view of their vehicles,
Right.
But that was for the unsightliness of
Yes.
it, right? That wasn't for his security issues.
We can't legislate unsightliness,
No,
yeah.
but, yeah.
Yeah. So it was, we couldn't call them, those cars that, but, we didn't know what they were going to park over there necessarily.
And now
It
you
was just
don't,
their
because they're behind a
excess
solid
vehicles.
fence.
Yeah.
What kind of gate?
Yeah, it was going to be a chain-driven, eventually a chain-driven, but for the beginning, Lupe, if you can close out of that restore thing up at the north on Holland Street, it's going to be a sliding gate. That's going to be the main access point because we have the ability to access electricity there. We're going to have an emergency access gate. We've got, that's 25-foot fire lane that goes through, allows access through over to Farquhar Street. That's going to be just swing gates.
And then lighting is just on the one post that's already there?
Yes, sir.
Is that just one light or?
Yes, sir.
what's-
Will it be monitored by a camera?
That's a future project with money.
Can a city manager give us a timeline on the potential build-out of, are we looking at something that's gonna be there for 2 years, or are we looking at something that's gonna sit there for 6 or 8 years?
How much money are we short to comply with all the central business district requirements?
I'd probably say, so none of my None of my design iterations did take into account the landscaping requirements, lighting requirements, etc. But simply looking at the concrete, we're $70,000 short for that. The fence, I could run some quick thought.
What did it cost, Steve?
Pardon?
What'd the fence cost down at the parking lot for the hotel?
It usually costs, things like that cost around $120 a linear foot is what I've been quoting, or being quoted. This is more manageable than that at this time.
But eventually you're gonna have to replace it anyhow, the fence.
The chain link or?
Yeah, the chain link.
They don't want to.
They
No.
don't want to. It's permanent. The fence is permanent, it's just the base.
They'll just change the surface.
So you're 70,000 short
On pavement.
on pavement, but you didn't account in the budget for anything that complies with CBD?
No, sir.
Okay. And then I'm gonna ask this question, since it kind of correlates, but, so on agenda item 6, I know we're not on it yet, but that surface was non-rigid paving material.
Correct, that's the Neil Martinson's property.
So what's the difference?
It's the same thing, it's just different types, so you have the crushed asphalt or you have base, which is what Neil has. And so it's the same language, but it's just slightly different material. For the next item, or is it 6?
And I'm not trying to jump ahead, I'm just trying to
Yeah.
figure out why one wording is one and one is the other.
Yeah, it's the same language, non-rigid, meaning that it's not either asphalt or concrete.
But it could be crushed limestone.
Correct, right.
Pea gravel, whatever.
Do we have any people in the audience that want to talk since this is a public hearing? Step to the podium, state your name, address. We all know who you are, but we need that for the record.
And we want to hear you.
I'm Steve Sheevey, Scheve, and I feel like I live on Railroad Street in Navasota, Texas.
111 Railroad.
111 South Railroad Street, 77868. I come here as someone who's sort of been through this process, and my wife and I have made some decisions to move into this town, and we're very interested in the success of this town. And that means protecting this city against lawsuits. The biggest number of lawsuits as a percentage of all suits filed are called strike suits brought by people who are looking at something that's not ADA compliant. Happy to share with you all, this doesn't come close to ADA compliant. If it's an employee parking lot for a public entity, it's subject to ADA. The surface does not comply. You have to put down markings. You've got for the handicap stalls, they got to be 96 inches wide. There's got to be an area for people to get out. And I'm not here criticizing because I'm delighted that the city is focusing on a major parking problem here. But I don't see this city get sued. And there are people that run around law firms, that's all they do. They have a cadre of people that go onto a property, and then they sue you to, try to shake you down for $25,000 or $30,000 upon the allegation you're not compliant. On top of that, you're here because this land is in the CBD. Well, there are ordinances, and this doesn't comply with about 8 of them. And I hope there's some way they could work around this, but it's not for planning and zoning to rewrite the ordinances. It's to make sure that what's being proposed is consistent with the ordinances. So if this was 1 block south or somewhere else, a lot of these CBD, Central Business District issues wouldn't be confronting you, but lighting, it's got to be 1 candle for the entire surface. As I appeared before you before, there's ramping issues, there's an array of issues that are found in the CBD ordinances. So I just wanted to know, we're invested here. We don't want to see you get sued.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Steve. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Larry Garcia. We have the salon next to the donut shop here. From my understanding, this thing isn't permanent. I just can't see putting all that material down and then someday having to pay again to get it all removed. Not only that, how is it going to affect all the other businesses around? Having that construction for, I don't know, a year or so maybe?
I guess
To build the parking lot? How long you plan on taking on building that thing?
very long at all. We were hoping, we're planning to have the surface down and everything before October. In this budget cycle, that's where we're hoping to spend that money, with the fencing happening in October. I believe that was about 3 weeks or so to get that fence up. So it wasn't gonna be very long to get this one done. This is the one on the far side of Farquhar, closest to the meadery.
Right.
So,
Don't get me wrong, I'm for our police officers and everything, and I'm on the road quite a bit. I work for a builder in College Station, and I see a lot of police officers on the side of the road, and I feel for them because people don't care about them. But my concern is, it's not, I'm glad that something's moving forward for them. If they need it, they need it. But my concern, we all pay taxes. Who's paying for it? How much is it gonna cost? And if it's not permanent, then why are we doing it? That's my big concern. You have the construction part of it, the start, and then if you decide that we don't need it, tearing it back down. I don't know if this is a city-owned property or not. Okay, that's another thing. So I'm all for it, don't get me wrong. I just didn't understand. I've heard people talk, and I've heard rumors that it belongs to somebody else. I didn't know, but now they confirmed that it is city-owned. If it's permanent, I don't see a problem with it. Those are my concerns. So I thank you for the time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions for them?
Samber's coming.
I'm Jennifer Garcia, his wife. Well, I'm always at the salon, therefore I see a lot of things. My question is, if Neil's parking is for the city employees and stuff, where would their entrance be? Because right now, we own the back lot that is adjacent to that. Therefore, I have a lot of problems sometimes with city vehicles parking but not pulling all the way in, especially since the building is gone there. They don't have a guideline. Therefore, my customers come in the back way because there's not a whole lot of parking up front. So I have called before to say, can y'all get the guy? I don't mind if they park there. That's not a problem. It's just pulling in far enough that way that is still access on this side road right here, because if not, it's only through the alley. And they can only come through the front alley because the back alley is totally grown up and you can't even see the alley road anymore. So that would be my question, is where would the entrance be for that parking? And would it be blocked off as
Sandra,
well from mine?
Sorry to interrupt, but that's another property.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, that's not this property, it's the next one.
okay,
Yeah.
got you, sorry, I got ahead.
That's all right.
Okay.
Come back up at the next one.
Yeah.
Come back in
Okay, y'all
7
remember
minutes,
what I
yeah.
said.
It's recorded.
Okay, thank you.
Westmoreland with Lone Star Floors, and this will be in front of me. So how tall is the privacy fence going to be?
6 foot.
I just feel like that's going to cut us off, because we are directly behind it, and it would make us feel like we're
That's the fence
not in the
ordinance
city
for
anymore,
central
so
business
not a
district.
part of it. So that
There's no height limitation.
that was my only question, so
The only thing
I
that
just think
says-
it would make the city look,
Visibility of your business is something, okay.
yeah.
The only thing it says is parking lots shall be screened from viewing along sidewalks and roadways through the combined use of free-forming berms, low masonry walls, and plantings.
That's not a low masonry wall.
I would agree with that.
With no plantings.
with plantings.
This is a toughie because I understand where the police department is
Yeah,
coming
I do too.
I mean,
Yeah.
they need the privacy. They're not there for beauty.
That's right.
They are a business.
And the police need their area too, so yeah.
And-
Oh, can we, I mean, to come up with some alternatives for this? I mean, I'm almost thinking red tip photinia, as a fencing and stuff, because
Well,
it's
privacy-
cheap and.
That doesn't stop someone from
No.
being able to go in or
Yeah,
view
and
what
to
they need to
video.
do to,
Yeah.
commit their crimes.
So Chief, I have to ask a question of you. Since you're the official crime fighter, what's the difference in security between a privacy fence like you have in your yard versus a chain link fence with canvas over the top of it?
Our main thing is for just view. So another reason, we've had SWAT teams come down and narcotics teams come down, and we stage right out here in the public, which we had one the other night. We've had one prior to it. The guys actually spotted and they fled prior to us rolling. So we go to other agencies, we get to pull into their privacy area, swap up our gear, load in the big vehicle, and roll out.
And what type of fencing do they have in those areas?
They do have some of this fencing. Some of theirs are built with their building, which we can't do that. And so that's how most agencies are. They have their electric fence. Their officers get to drive through, park in the back, get the patrol cars. They get to, like, if they tow a vehicle, get to search the vehicle without having the public coming up there. If we have a major scene, that's an immediate search warrant. And right now, we're having to just put it right there in the middle of the bay. Where and the law is we're required to keep it behind, closed, with a camera system. Say it's raining or whatever overnight, we just throw a tarp. So that's another reason too, having this type of privacy, locked gates and so forth is besides evidence. And then we have our narcotics teams or SWAT teams coming down. And just last night or Saturday night, we're in the middle of the road, blocked the road up, and that's where we geared out right there.
But somebody with an X-Acto knife, they can cut a hole in that and get all the view they want.
Well, it's on the inside, and it's a little bit different. I mean, you're going a little bit at a time. By that time, we would spot them if we're out there gearing up. You see somebody, and our future would have the camera there. But if our evidence vehicle's parked right in there, and we had to go handle something else, then it's under that secure side, and the future would be dispatched as viewing the cameras as they do this building right now.
So question for you then, the driveway out back of the station, if you fence that off, privacy-wise, would that be sufficient for staging area?
We're talking about armored vehicles.
I'm just asking, I don't know.
It wouldn't,
Okay.
yeah.
Thinking about what,
But a 6-foot fence is tall enough to hide it?
Well, at least you're when they drive by versus seeing.
Gotcha, okay.
Their SWAT team, it says SWAT written on the side, and they see we're all in the middle of the road, as the other night was.
Yeah.
We took up 2 blocks, and at least then because everybody parks, and we load into one, so
Gotcha.
say, hey, what's happening at the police department? Word spreads pretty fast nowadays.
Yeah.
so thinking about what Mr. Sheeby said, how could this be made ADA compliant? John?
Oh, that's a John question.
That is a John question. I'm thinking quickly on my feet. If that's the concern on this one, I still hold it across. We do have, the folks who would access this would be accessing, this is part of the greater parking within City Hall, in which we do have ADA parking. But if that was a condition of planning and zoning, I think I'd have to go and beg Jason for a little bit more. But we might be able to take those couple of
Oh, which one is it? It's this, I think, yes. We could probably take something like this area and actually go ahead and get this up with concrete here. We were already discussing a walk-through gate here. That would allow you access onto this sidewalk, which is already built out ADA compliant, and you're into our ADA system with crosswalks, et cetera, ramps all the way through. So I would see that area being able to be concreted as a workable solution.
Is there a larger necessity to have this type of parking versus having it in proximity to City Hall? If the city had a piece of property where this could be done that wasn't in the central business district, would that hinder your ability to do this kind of staging?
Or go like having our sign trailer's been sitting out here, our radar trailer comes in, then it's parked right there, we can easily access, because that's for major crash, we'll take the signboard trailer out. Our future would be, we would have our mobile command vehicle where that can easy access. If we're out on the scene, some personnel right there, they just go right across the road, grab the extra vehicles and our gear that we need to go. We have a UTV, and soon to have we have a trailer for that. I mean, they're scattered everywhere right now, so we're having to drive here to grab this, then come back, get the UTV. A light tower's coming in soon, so we're directing traffic for NISD. Our equipment is one spot versus going around everywhere.
Well, now you're talking about more than a parking lot. Sounds to me like you're talking about a yard.
Well, it's going to have our equipment, which is just you see our trailers are parked right here in the bay, right outside, and they move them around, and then our light trailer's the same way. Everything else is all of our patrol vehicles, which we have anything used for floods or so forth. But if you have to drive to another location, right, we call them in for hurricane, then they have to drive to another spot, grab their vehicle, come back in, get other gear, and then load out.
Yeah, the language is Navasota Police Department staff parking area, and you're not describing a parking area.
So real quick, we've talked about the material on the layout of the material. So that's a concern I'm hearing from P&Z. I'm hearing concerns about the landscape. I'm assuming the material of the fencing is higher level than the landscape, because you've not really talked a lot about the landscaping. So if staff comes back, goes back to the drawing board, comes back and addresses those concerns, P&Z, is that something that...
Jason, I'm going to tell you, I'm all in favor, and I think this is needed. But aesthetically, in the central business district, it doesn't cut it.
Okay.
Because we saw what Mr. Sheevy had to do to build a parking lot in a central business district.
And I totally understand that. I wasn't here when that was required of the Sheevys.
Well, the ordinance is still the same.
And I got that, and I think we've had several conversations where we've talked about the central business district, that we really need to revisit what some of those ordinances are. I mean, we had the same issue with the wildfire mead with the materials on the building. So we've had discussions where we really need to come back and have discussions about what that ordinance really needs to read moving forward, because it was written way back, and is there some things that's changed since then that we need to look at? So what I'll do is, we can go back, staff can go back to the drawing board. We've heard you, we understand your concerns. And the last thing I want to do is not being compliant with what we make others do.
Exactly.
But also recognizing that there is a need there. I see it totally different on the ADA stuff, and I understand that.
Yeah, I'm pretty much of an advocate for
I
ADA.
know, but I will tell you.
I'm the only one in here that
Right.
is.
I totally understand that, but with our PD, we're not going to have a situation where that's probably going to need that sort of compliance. But I understand that we need to address those. So let staff go back and to the drawing board, and we'll come back to you with something else.
Within the confines of the ordinance.
Of the ordinance and of what
Of
I've
the
heard
central business
from P&Z.
So you're gonna look at fencing, surface material, ADA,
And lighting.
and lighting, okay?
We definitely can look at the lighting part, but yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, to me, is it treated as if it was anyone else?
Okay.
Because that's what we're doing.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Ken.
Anything further before we close the public hearing? We'll close the public hearing at 6:39. So, nowhere in the agenda item does it talk about approving a site plan. It's only talking about granting a conditional use permit. So we can grant the conditional use permit
But the
We're not
permit,
approving the site.
but the permit attached to the agenda item is
So you
stating
can,
that they can do it as is.
so you can make an amendment to the conditional use permit ordinance and just say you're approving the use and the site is to be considered at a future date. So that is something that you can do. So it can continue through the public process, through council, and then comes back for the site plan approval, by P and Z.
I move that we approve the conditional use permit, with, however, they'd have to come back for approval of the site plan.
Have a motion from
Can we
Commissioner.
say, can we add in there, Ethan, you know, the site plan, that meets the,
Yeah, well, I mean, it has to according to
okay,
what it says anyways, in my opinion, but.
yeah.
So the reason that this is a little bit different than what, well, any conditional use permit process allows some variations of the design standards, but we can definitely add that to the language of the motion to say a site plan that meets the requirements of
The
CBD.
standards.
Yeah.
Because I think for the public that's important to say that.
You need to say it again?
No.
Okay.
You got it all?
He's got
It's recorded. I'll
So,
go.
so the motion is,
So the motion is to approve the conditional use permit with the contingency that the site plan come back to Planning and Zoning Commission meeting all the CBD standards.
okay. We have a motion from Commissioner Ethan Barczyk. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
A second from Commissioner Copeland. Any further discussion?
If, when you say meets the conditions of the central business district plans, that means meet it to the letter, or are we gonna walk back on things? Because right now, seems like city managers has some expectation we'll be walking back on landscaping, as long as the fencing is good, but maybe not the landscaping.
Well,
And
I
if we
guess I
write
didn't
it
get
that way,
feeling.
then it's all or none. That's my question.
My understanding is that they bring it back with their interpretation of meeting the CBD requirements.
And then we can decide whether they meet or not.
Right.
Okay, I just want to be clear with that, rather, you know what I mean? Give the conditional use.
Right.
Separating these things, I understand the idea of it so that people can progress. I also understand that once there's a foot in the door, it gets a little harder to, close it without pinching toes.
Okay, we'll vote. All in favor of the conditional use permit with the conditions signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Seeing none, the motion carries. And that brings us to the next agenda item, which is agenda item number 5. Conduct a public hearing for the purpose of receiving public comment and testimony regarding a zoning amendment initiated by the city of Navasota for the purpose of prohibiting tobacco, hookah, and vapor retail stores in Navasota, Grimes County, Texas 77868. The proposed zoning amendment amends Article 4, Ag Open Space, Article 5, R1A High Density Single Dwelling Unit, 7,000 square foot lot, Residential District, Article 6, R1B, Medium Density Single Dwelling Unit, Quarter Acre Residential District, Article 7, R1C, Low Density Single Dwelling Unit, 2 acre lot or larger, Residential District, Article 8, R2, Medium Density Multi-Dwelling Unit, Residential District, Article 9, R3, High Density Multi-Dwelling Unit, Residential District, Article 10, OD, Overlay District, Article 11, B1, General Business District, Article 12, B2, General Business District, Single Structures, Uses over 50,000 square foot, Article 13, CBD, Central Business District, Article 14, M1, Light Industrial District, M2, Heavy Industrial District, Article 16, PU, Public Use District, Article 17, Planned Unit District, PUD District, Article 24, Definitions, Good Lord. So pretty much we're gonna allow it nowhere inside the city limits of Navasota. Did we miss anything, Jason?
Would have been easier to write it that way.
Yes.
Now I feel like we missed one.
Makes you wanna go back and look.
Would you wanna do that, Dan?
Well, I tried, but I kinda got a little deep into and so I stopped.
So we're gonna open the public hearing at 6:45.
Mr. Chairman, Planning and Zoning Commission, again, this is another city-initiated zoning amendment. We've been working with our chief of police on some feedback on this, and it's really just, if you drive through any, or most cities, I know I recently drove through, I'm not going to name the cities, but it seems like the vape shops are just everywhere. They're almost as frequent or maybe more frequent than gas stations. It's definitely a detrimental thing if that were to happen in our few strip centers that we do have. And so one thing to note about this ordinance is it does prohibit new from coming in, but anyone that's established, that's already in business today, they will not be impacted by that.
We only have 2, is that correct?
Correct, and I think only one is operational, but they've both already started the process to open, and so they basically slid in as the door is potentially shutting. But again, it wouldn't affect those business owners unless they seize the business or they abandon the business.
Okay.
Then they would they had to fall in compliance with this. And so I know there's an example here from the city of Sugar Land the chief provided, and then this ordinance has been reviewed by our legal counsel, and if approved, it will go to council as well on the 26th. So.
Chief, can I ask you a question? So I can go into a vape store and buy a bong, I can buy a one-hitter, I can buy everything under the sun.
You even know the lingo.
Well, yeah.
He must have gone there.
I grew up in the 70s. But if I walk out the store, it's illegal to have it.
No, it's legal until you put something illegal in it.
Can't have residue.
But isn't it considered drug paraphernalia until you put...
Once you put something in it, or you intend to put something illegal in it, then it's drug paraphernalia.
But that's the whole purpose of them selling that stuff, is though somebody can put something in it.
Depends on the wording they use. I mean, so we've been to places and they explain, I am selling this for drug users. That's illegal. They're selling it for tobacco purposes, then it's...
Yeah, well, I don't know about you, but how many of your friends sit around a bong and smoke tobacco out of it?
But it is, on the law, it is legal to possess until you put or use it or have intent to use it for something with illegal substance in it.
What are the statistics that you've seen from the schools?
So I did, when we presented to council, Mr. Bowman was up here, he was unable to make it, and he sent over his numbers that he shared.
And this is just for Navasota?
Just NISD, and these are the numbers. They have vape detectors there, and how many times the vape detectors alert when a vape is used inside the schools. The week of April 21st, 802. 28th, 788. May 5th, 803.
Why aren't they in class?
Whoa.
May 12th, 866, and then it dropped at May 19th because no school, but it's 313. That included high school, junior high, and even had a couple of hits at the elementary school.
Good Lord. And that's only inside the school, that's not in the parking lot?
Those are only on their detectors inside the school. I don't have our exact numbers on how many, because once the detector hits, the admin or school resource officers have to get there to confiscate. And with the amount of drug test kits and stuff that they go through, plus the DAP school being filled, it was quite a bit that they were seizing off students. Because of the new Texas law, no vapes inside the schools. That's automatic DAP. Mm-hmm. Obviously, not supposed to have a vape anyway because you're under 21 years of age. Majority of the vapes, we see a lot of the tobacco vapes, THC vapes, and so school's starting Monday, so we're going to see. Obviously, this is we already have the shops in town is to prevent more.
Every convenience store in town sells it
That was
too.
my question.
But these are solely vape shops that just
Right.
sell that only. Yes, vape shops, and there is a state law for the signage and certain distance and all that, but from schools. But this was just specific for shops only selling that, only gas stations, sell gas and everything. It's not their high percentage of sales.
Another question, do you do sting operations at the places that are selling vapes?
That mainly focus on our TABC handles a
Okay.
lot of that, which
Okay.
they've called, they do that. We have done it in the past, yes. We both work together, but that's their primary is alcohol and tobacco.
Is that what this Fatties is that I saw over there by Subway?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's not a sandwich shop.
Yeah, it's not a sandwich shop. But it's more convenient to have it next door to a sandwich shop.
One thing I did tell the city council too, also, I looked up, there was a state house bill they tried to pass to prevent, flavored tobacco. It didn't go through, but there's several other states that have. We recently went to California and noticed, yes, you can walk in those stores and there is no flavored tobacco, even menthol cigarettes, so even snuff, mint snuff, wintergreen. So all the vapes were gone. You saw several buildings that were vacant businesses because that, I've never done it, but researching and all that and the health effects, I mean, it's gonna take years before they figure all this out, but the unflavored vape taste is, they said, is terrible, so that's why the flavoring is in it. And that's why they passed that law to California. There's 5 states that were involved in
But they
that.
still sell marijuana in California, so.
Not flavored.
Can you do an in-service for the people on all this stuff? I guess I'm missing it.
Lunch and learn?
Yeah, lunch and learn maybe.
There's a lot to learn on it. Once I started reading it, I mean, plus the health stuff is just, it's gonna take
Yeah.
years before they can even find that stuff out, but.
Hmm.
And they've noticed vapes have gone up, when you look at cigarette smoking to vape smoking, obviously it has risen a lot where cigarette sales have gone down quite a bit.
Thank you, Chief.
Wow.
Is there anybody in the public that's here to talk about the ordinance?
Soon we'll have the vape trials instead of tobacco trials.
Connie needs a smoke.
Connie Clements, 300 Hillside Street. I've got my Crime Stoppers hat on. Back in 2021, as a director, I attended the Texas Crime Stoppers Conference down in Cameron County. And at that time, they had already passed ordinances in some of their cities down there because the vape shops were fronts for meth labs and things like that. And I was going to bring that information back and share it with the city, but that was about the time, Brad had turned in his resignation and we were transitioning and all that. But we heard a lot of stories down there about that. And of course, they're closer to the border than we are, but the border's getting closer to us now, so. But that is another reason why some of the cities are doing that.
So you're saying you wouldn't want a vape store on Hillside Drive?
No.
Okay.
I've got one close enough around the corner there.
Thank you, Connie.
Go ahead.
Steve Sheedy, 111 South Railroad Street. My wife reminded me that I'm a recovering lawyer and told me I needed to dress up for today's hearing.
You did.
I would only urge you, again, sometimes I fall back into being a lawyer, but words are so important, and if you come out of this with a proposed ordinance to prevent the proliferation of tobacco, when HEB builds down here, say they can't sell tobacco? What does vape mean? And, I'm happy to talk with people about things because I do have some opinions, but I really encourage you to focus on that language or you're going to create something that could be subject to some legal challenges. Thank you.
Steve, to clarify your statement, this is only prohibiting tobacco stores that 50% or more of their business is from the selling of tobacco type products.
Thank you. I haven't seen the language. All I saw was the summary and recommendation, which says prevent proliferation. I don't know what proliferation really means. A vape, I don't really know what that means, or tobacco-based retail stores. I also don't know what major thoroughfares means. I mean, in my world, used to get paid, now I don't get paid, to look at words and really think about what are the implications? How far can this be misconstrued by another lawyer? Now, that's how I made my living as lawyers fighting over language. And I'd be happy to help out in any way, but I would just encourage you to really give thought to the words that you choose if you decide to go down this path. I don't have any personal views one way or the other, as long as I don't have to pay for the decisions that people make, you know. They want to smoke, let them smoke, I don't care. Don't ask me to pay for the health consequences. But as it impacts the city, those words can be really important. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Does anyone have the economic demographics that say how many vape stores can be supported by a population density? I watched the video of the meeting, and there was, I think, you were saying about going to a beach town or something and seeing one after another, after another, after another. And I know, you know, working in College Station, how many I can see, you know, within campus distance and everything. But I have a hard time believing that we'll have a dozen of them longer than X amount of time before they compete each other out. I mean, we're products of the 70s. Do you know how many VHS tape stores there were in my neighborhood when I was a kid? I mean, they all came in because everybody was going to make a buck selling VHS. And then they all disappeared. And it wasn't because the DVDs and stuff came. It was because they competed each other out on a business model. And only the good ones were going to survive, or only the ones that were franchised were going to survive. Fatty's has already got stores down in College Station. He knows what he's doing. He's making money. But I just don't know about passing an ordinance to specifically isolate one particular sin business. At the same time, we have 2 liquor stores in this town, and people could say liquor is just as evil as tobacco. So we're not going to tell them. And the way this is written now, Steve and I can't go into business and start a good cigar bar, because if we charge $5 for a cigar and $5 for a whiskey, we're out of compliance.
So back when we brought this item to council in June, at that time we had a total of 4 applicants that were wanting to come here. One of them was Fatty's. One was the current one that's in the current location. Another one was looking at a location next to actually high school. It was looking at the Donut Palace. There was another one that was actually looking at the location next to the food truck park. And so the Donut Palace one, they ran the economics, of course, that location, the cost to purchase that piece of property for the amount of revenue they were going to bring in wouldn't cover it, because because they're so close to the school that there is a state law that requires you cannot advertise if you're that close. And so they ran the numbers, and there was no way they could do any advertising, so they didn't do that. The Fatty's, actually, he was aware that this was coming forth, and so he went on and applied, put everything up, ready to go. It's not open yet, but he actually purchased the building. And so we do see uptick of people coming in. There was actually one that wanted to go over here on Farquhar, next to the bridal store at one time. I know that Chris Tucker was looking at leasing that to them. They chose not to. We had one that was over here by Farmers Insurance, and I think that's the one that actually moved over by O'Reilly's now. But we've had a lot of interest of people coming in, and the part of it is, the reason we moved forward with bringing this is the amount of issues that we're continuing to see in the schools. Our police department has SROs there. The school district is trying to manage that as best they can. And we did look at some of the concerns that Mr. Sheedy was talking about to the language. Our attorney did look at it, and you didn't get to see the ordinance, but the ordinance is written very clearly to so that your HEBs and the other portion is, hey, what about Brookshire's? They've got a location out there. Well, that's part of Brookshire's, and so we weren't worried they wouldn't fall under that. And so we made sure that the language was written so that it didn't hamstring us. But again, this is something that we wanted to bring forward to council, and council was very supportive of us bringing it through the process, and so that's why you have it before you tonight, is for that consideration.
So back to Todd's point about opening a cigar bar, do we have to have tobacco in the language? Can we just have hookah and vapor retail stores?
So again, that was just something
Or does that negate the whole thing? I don't know, I'm just asking.
Nicotine. It's not tobacco, it's nicotine. They're nicotine delivery systems. That's
Right,
what
but
they
is
are.
the point of the whole thing to essentially
I'm not sure.
remove vapes?
I'm not sure what the point is.
Or is the point to remove tobacco?
the point was for the vapes. That was the point moving forward.
That would be my only concern, like if someone wanted to open a cigar
Cigar
bar
bar, yeah.
where they might happen to sell 50% or more of cigars, you're not gonna have kids smoking cigars in school, I assume, right? But that would just be my only, that would just be my only thought, like, are we limiting then adult activities?
Right. So again, we have that discussion, definitely something we can run through legal to get
Adjustments.
to make the adjustments on it. But the idea was strictly for the vape, that's where we wanted to.
So this is obviously a community issue, and I'm always trying to play devil's advocate to some degree, but what we're looking at is passing an ordinance to protect children, correct? Or we're passing an ordinance to ensure a legitimate legal business does not come to town?
So I think number one is to protect children. Number two is what do you want your town to look like? When you drive in or you go on one, that's all you see is outside the central business district. You can do what you want to with the color of your buildings, and so if you want a bright green building that says Fatty's all over it, that's purple, pink, and everything, it draws your attention to it. That's what P&Z needs to decide is what do you want the town to look like? Because by allowing this, that's something that could happen. We're trying to get on the front end of it before something like that happens. Has anybody been to Madisonville lately? So Madisonville, I'll actually talk about that. So you drive down Madisonville, you got a bright green building. It's a nice, big, huge building. It's green, and that's all it is. It's all you see. It's all you notice. I recently purchased a place in the Oklahoma area, and so you drive through Durant. Oklahoma is you can actually get medical marijuana there. That's all you see is medical marijuana, but you also see tons of vape shops too, and that's all you see now when you drive through downtown Durant is medical marijuana and vape shops, medical marijuana, vape shops. So what I'm saying is what do you want your town to future look like? Because there's an opportunity where this could happen, and I'm trying to get it on the front end.
So why don't we add medical marijuana dispensaries?
Well, so again, what we're trying to address, the primary concern was related to the vapes. Our high school and the junior high, it's unreal the amount of vapes that our PDs are covering there as well as the staff. And sure, they can go to some other city and get it, so let them do that. Mm-hmm. But let's not make it available here if we don't have to.
So what is your opinion and Chief, you as well, like on removing tobacco?
Again, my main concern was to do the vape. Other cities, and what we kind of mirrored that was with what Sugar Land did. Sugar Land went with the full-blown thing. There are other cities, the city I just came from.
Full-blown as in the exact same, okay.
Yeah, so other city, like the city I just came from, they started getting a lot of requests, so they did a moratorium on them until they could get to this point where they decide whether they want to outlaw them all together. So there are other cities that are looking at it. I know that another city here in Grimes County, it's looking at mirroring our same type of ordinance, and they're waiting to see how this goes. So there are other cities out there that are wanting to outlaw the vapes, the vape shops. So any recommendations that you want to strike through it or anything, again, that's what we're here for, is to have that conversation.
If we leave tobacco in, can they get a special use permit?
If it's prohibited, no, not if it's explicitly listed, because you cannot get variances or specific use permits for things that are not allowed.
So you couldn't open up a cigar shop?
Nodding to the, where it says retail tobacco store, more
Yeah,
than
the-
50% of gross revenues.
Would be 100% revenue if it's a cigar shop.
Yeah.
Right, so there's some adjustments, and it's important to go through this process.
And whatever planning and zoning decide, ever how you want to, move this forward to council, I mean, be sure to put that comments in there so that gives staff enough time to get with legal counsel, hey, here's some concerns P and Z's had, we'd love to be able to address these before it gets to council, because council might have the same questions.
Any other public comments? So we will close the public hearing at
We have
7.
one more.
Whoop, sorry.
My name is Muhammad Khan. I'm 29-year-old. We were the first one to open a vape shop over here in Navasota almost 3 years ago. We were at the Lesser Road, and then we moved to the O'Reilly over there. And when we received the letter, all the employees were like disappointed. They were scared. They're losing their job, everything. And we had been very responsible for the past 3 years, checking everybody's IDs, make sure that nobody come to our shop is under 21. And we've been, we have zero problem from our other businesses, or we would never receive a ticket because we've been responsible citizens and taking care of for everybody. I just wanted to let everybody know that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Close it now.
I'm going to close the public hearing at 7:05 PM.
Do you have all those things, the hookahs and all that stuff in there?
Never been in here.
Okay, so I don't know.
Well, I'd like to say, first of all, I don't want to see Washington Avenue or LaSalle become nothing but vape shops. However, like Ethan said and Todd said, we shouldn't not allow somebody to do a cigar bar or a cigar shop or something of that nature. The problem isn't cigars, pipe tobacco. The problem obviously is the vaping. And I don't know that there's any way we can do anything to prevent what's happening at the Navasota ISD because of the fact they can get the vapes everywhere in town, at every convenience store. Brookshire Brothers has it. But we don't need more options for them to go buy that from. I think one good vape store or two good vape stores that are here, okay, but I don't want 15 of them.
But minors can't go in and buy it, right? It's being bought by
He was
someone
saying
that's of
Right.
legal age, and
21.
then they're selling it to these underage kids. That's the problem.
Unless they're going into,
People are buying it for them.
or going into a convenience store and buying it.
Right.
Well, what's next after vaping? Another ordinance on whatever else is new?
Well, I think the city managers made the point that it's not so much about the type of business, but more about what we expect out of businesses and city lines and properties that are outside of the central business district where we don't have the control over the aesthetics.
Right.
We were able to put exotic dancing in a particular zone of the city, correct? Because you cannot legislate out First Amendment rights. So it's zoned to be in one particular area of town. That is an option for something like this, is that we don't negate the ability for someone to bring that business. However, we can say it can't be anywhere except, and if they want to put it there, then they've got to draw people there, right? They're not drive-bys and seeing bright green buildings. What they are doing is having to go into some industrial park. And then you've got, real adults that want to practice their nicotine addiction are welcome to drive to that corner of town and get the products that they want. That's not, for me, we're not telling people you can't have that business, because I do see a slippery slope about we get to decide what businesses are, and that's not the job.
But we had, because I'd mentioned, a particular friend of mine that does consulting. He has a PhD in real estate, and he worked recently with a city that had special use permits, so they didn't permit anything. Everybody had to get a special use permit so that they could monitor, like how many tire shops and how many of this and how many of that. And I don't know if that's a possibility or not, but, rather than have 30 of something and 0 of something else, I don't know.
There again, we're considering the CBD and not
Right.
the entire city limits. So the aesthetics there, like Randy said, do we want these buildings that usually draw people because of their colors of the buildings?
But this particular ordinance, aren't we considering all zones?
It's every zone.
It's all zones. Mhm.
So, I know this isn't the same, but where is exotic dancing allowed? Industrial?
Industrial.
I'm curious.
Industrial.
Okay, so,
And it is,
Do we need a map?
I know where the
I
industrial.
think there's a building available.
Are you gonna take your bong there? or-
Not as big, because you can't buy one.
So the chances of anybody going to the industrial park and building a strip club or a vape store are probably minimal.
I don't know.
That, and the reason, and as Todd mentioned, the reason that those particular kind of businesses are in a single district is because you can't actually prohibit that because it was considered like free speech, a manner of free speech, but every other business, Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council does have the authority to explicitly say this kind of X business, it can be prohibited. I know that we focus a lot on development regulations and site plans and plats, but the Texas Constitution actually explicitly, I wanted to look it up to make sure. Local governments, you promote the public health, safety, and welfare. So this is well within the scope of Planning and Zoning Commission, whether you decide to do it or not. But it's development regulations and those 3 factors too.
Again, I argue that that's a slippery slope, because we could take that and say, why did we let more fast food in town?
Right.
The argument goes on forever when you start using things like, the health and well-being of society and people.
Well, then you get, like California, you can't sell a 44-ounce Coke because it's unhealthy.
Unless you don't use a straw.
Yeah.
Remember when we had we had a lot of discussion about the tattoo parlor? When it came in a few years ago. There was a lot of discussion about that. And,
What, that they would proliferate, and we'd have 30 tattoo parlors?
and that it would bring crime and, all sorts of not so favorable people.
Wells.
Yeah. So we had a lot of discussion then.
Well, again, I know the city manager said that there's a lot of interest. The interest is because it's a fast-growing industry. It doesn't mean it can be supported by the community.
And I'm gonna reiterate what I said. I don't know how it's gonna cut down on the amount of vaping done at the campuses when they can go other places and buy it.
No, that's an education problem, that's not an access problem.
You can't go into a liquor store unless you're over 21 either, but that doesn't cut down on teenage drinking.
No, they're gonna get Boone's Farm. They always did.
You a tickle pink girl, honey?
Anybody have a motion?
Well, and then I guess the other question comes back to whether or not the language in this is appropriate, or if we're talking about tobacco.
Yeah, I have a problem with that as well as you do, because tobacco shop, or rephrase that, a cigar bar or a cigar shop is totally different than a vape shop.
A motion could be made to make those adjustments for council, if that's the direction.
I move that we approve the zoning amendment initiated by the city of Navasota for the purpose of prohibiting tobacco, hookah, and vapor retail stores under the condition that we remove tobacco.
We have a motion from Commissioner Barcheck to remove tobacco and approve the zoning amendment. Second. Diaz seconds that. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
Not as written. Nay, not as written.
And that brings us to agenda item number 6. Where did my number 6 go?
Other parking spots.
Conduct a public hearing for the purpose of receiving public comment and testimony regarding a conditional use permit application submitted by the City of Navasota for the property located at 202 Holland Street in Navasota, Grimes County, Texas 77868, legally described as H&TC Block 108, lots 1 and 2. The conditional use permit application requests to allow for parking as a primary use, a conditional use listed in Article 13 of the CBD Central Business District. And we will open this hearing at 7:18 p.m.
Ma'am, did you have any more comments about number 6?
Sandra.
No, just what I said.
Okay.
That was my only concern.
She's talking about the alleys.
So, Mr. Chairman, Planning and Zoning Commission, this is very similar to the first item, number 4. There is quite a bit of difference in terms of what the proposed improvements are and why. As mentioned before, conditional use permits, they allow the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council discretionary approval of uses with unique or widely varying operating characteristics. This particular site is where the building was just demolished recently in downtown. The current property owner actually went through Planning and Zoning and City Council to have a vendor market approved, where specifically he was allowed to remain with a non-rigid paving material. The reason being is eventually he plans on building hopefully a beautiful building to be a great addition to downtown. In that interim, whatever that may be, again, trying to alleviate ways to increase parking in and around City Hall. The proposed use is to allow city staff, not police department, although police department could park their personal vehicle, while Neil makes up his mind, essentially. And so if this is approved by Planning and Zoning and City Council, the city will enter into a lease agreement with Mr. Martinson. And when the time comes that he's ready to pull the trigger and get his drawings done and building done, then obviously the parking as a primary use will cease. But in this particular situation, no proposed improvements are being planned for. John just did a great job on just measuring out what's feasible, how many parking spaces could we fit there. If everyone follows the courteous parking methods, obviously to stripe gravel is pretty difficult, but again, this is just a temporary way to alleviate some downtown parking.
So why don't we use the same material the police department wants to use, the asphalt millings?
Well, this is a little different again because this is private property. This is not owned by the city. The material wasn't specified for Mr. Martinson's vendor market. It was just loose material that can be contained on site.
Okay.
And so obviously whatever that is, it has to be sufficient to allow a car to park on there. So he does plan on bringing a little bit more of that material, leveling it out. There's some standing water there sometimes. So again, this is in an ideal parking situation that would allow up to 25 spots.
To me, this would be a better lot for PD to use.
Also be marked and everything.
If the city doesn't know.
Yeah, John and I are gonna work maybe on figuring out a way to mark them, but it is difficult with loose material.
Sure.
So another one of our, Lupe and I have been discussing that marking. Really what this was, I'll be honest, our intention was not to really mark this. This was just making sure that planning and zoning was aware that we're talking, if everybody parked perfectly, we're talking 25 cars. It gives y'all an idea of the scope. Whether or not you come out there on a Tuesday and they're parked in exactly this orientation, I highly doubt it. But one of our concerns is if you look, some of this parking is in that kind of middle aisle. Well, that's great. We could probably look at getting curb stops on the edges, but you can't really put curb stops there in the middle Monday morning first thing and then take them up Friday when you leave for the vendor market on Saturday. So at that point, if you can only do part of it, I mean, 25 is, again, this is just kind of as far as magnitude, I'd call it worst case scenario. It's the most that you could feasibly really fit. We looked at it, we even considered, I looked at them as 10 foot wide. Your standards are 9 foot wide, just so, because no one's going to park exactly perfectly. Someone's going to pull up in a different location and you're going to have to leave that spot open for a while.
Lupe, I have a question for you. I'm sorry, and to the commission. Because the city doesn't own this, is it not the owner's responsibility to come and request the permit versus the city requesting a permit for a property they don't own?
So the property owner filled out the conditional use permit application, signed and notarized it, and marked the city as the project representative. That's why he's not here tonight, but he is aware.
Okay, because I think the wording says that the city is petitioning it, something to that effect.
It does say that.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that needs to be adjusted.
In the spelling of his name, Martinson.
Yeah. Unless he changed it.
Is that on the ordinance? Oh, that's on the staff report. Oh, okay. Yeah.
You never know.
Okay.
How is this going to be marked in such a way that it's restricted to city employees?
That actually was a topic that we were hopefully going to discuss as we go through this process. You're allowing parking as a primary use. Ideally, it's just for staff only. However, that's part of the conversation.
Yeah, part of Mr. Martin's requirement is for the city to put signs up that
Employee parking.
Employees, staff parking, Monday through Friday, 8 to whatever. That is part of the negotiated contract draft that we have.
That would make it a ticketable offense.
Hey, if you write as many tickets, you could pay for the fence or
Concrete.
Yes, it would be probably, but not something that would probably our police department would be focusing on.
Great
Bigger
answer.
fish to kill.
I don't know, I go back to the CBD requirements, but since it's not a permanent thing, part of me wants to just put a time frame on it, just like we did his market conditional use. have it aligned with the same time frame. That's my first thought.
What was that timeline?
1 year.
1 year.
He has 1 year to make his market.
He would have to reapply for the use
Oh,
permit.
he has use for
after
1
July.
year of having a market. After that, he has to reapply. Then you do the same thing. They get parking for a year, and then they have to reapply.
Do you have a 1-year agreement with him?
We can put it as 1 year.
Okay.
And make sure that it conforms with
The ordinance.
the ordinance and the renewal of this. Again, we're not gonna put a lot of, the signs are gonna be the most cost we put into it.
Yeah.
The rest of the material stuff, that's on his dime.
So the city's just paying the lease.
Buying the signs and paying the lease.
No landscape, no fence, no nothing.
There's planter boxes out there.
Trash cans?
What'd you say?
We've got planter boxes.
That's a good point, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, they were already there.
Yep.
My only question is
Can you pull up the photo real quick so
Oh,
we can
sorry.
show them the current drive space that we have coming into it on both sides?
This is,
So the donut shop's above it, right?
donut shop is here.
Oh, it's on the
Donut
right.
shop's over
Okay.
here.
Looking at it wrong, okay.
So this is Holland, and just north of the screen right here is City Hall existing. This is shown as kind of an emergency egress. Really what it is when we look at this property, there's a 20-foot alleyway here. Our goal is to keep that. If you notice, we didn't do anything with this space. We didn't do anything with this last space. We try to keep it within the grounds of the existing foundation. This shows the old building that was there, but that follows with the concrete that's still in the ground.
So there's still concrete there?
Right along the edges where the wall stood. There's just
Outside foundation, not floor. Is that what you mean?
The sidewalks, yeah, essentially.
Sidewalks.
So, but it's within the bounds of where that building was, is all that we're talking about. And we are talking about, so if you remember back to when that building was there were some trailers back there. But if you look, we're not even thinking we're gonna be parking beyond where that building was. So that leaves all the trailer space and the back alley open.
And Sanders Building is this other one?
To the right.
two lots, L,
Mm-hmm.
so my lot's right here, I have an entrance, and then the long lot behind the donut shop.
Okay.
So that's what, and that way, or they're gonna be coming through the alley, or what, because I know before I've had several city vehicles coming through there, and it runs out my entrance right there, but when I called the city years back, and they were kind enough to put in some fillers there, because they knew that they would have, you know, our trucks and other work vehicles coming in and out that lot.
So there is a curb cut already, right about where those arrows are on the top by Holland. That's the plan, is to keep that current drive. I think that was where the previous owner had the garage door that would come in there. That's gonna be the main entrance there on Holland Street.
Is there any way we could put, this is it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm visually seeing some kind of fence that kind of corners out that lot to define that alleyway on both sides.
Well, I guess where the gravel ends kind of defines the parking spaces, right? Wherever
But it's kind of, when you go through the drive through the donut shop, it's very undefined.
Yeah.
That's my only concern. You don't really know where you are.
Well, we could put the curb stops in there, at the very back of the property.
Just something that defines.
Right, I got it, but we also need to work out with the property owner for his market.
Yeah, that's what I was
Because I don't know
thinking,
what
what's that do to
what
his
his
market?
plans are.
Right.
Because if you remember, he was gonna do some stuff back there toward the alleyway.
Right.
I think you said porta potties or something, right?
Lupe, if you can go back to the site plan real fast. To address the cornering out, again, kind of keeping the land open and stuff. If we've got curb stops here, and we don't have one here, I think that's a pretty implied intention that you shouldn't be parking right here without having to actually fully corner that out.
Yeah, I just, in my head, I'm like, man, I'd really love to see a definition there. Because they're not gonna park all the way up, or they'll park past the property line, or they'll pass.
Maybe a chain link fence with fabric material screening.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
It could be a tennis court in the evenings during the week.
We did have a chain link fence up on the police for like the birthday bash.
Oh, yeah.
They did
Yeah.
put up a temporary fence. And I liked it because I could put my signs on that temporary
Good job, son. We're calling a temporary fence there for a year, though.
But they took my signs when they took the fence.
That was your payment. And ADA applies, doesn't apply, because it's city parking on the other side too?
That's the way I was interpreted, because that frees up, if there is a city employee that needs to utilize it, then it's been told that they can park in the parking lot.
So staff is gonna be directed to park here?
Staff has already been directed to park here. I've already been, I got the email today. If this passes, obviously, contingent on that.
So I have aligned with the specific use permit timeline approved from Mr. Martinson, and then, of course, adjusting that ordinance to reflect Neil, since he's the owner.
Yes. Any further for
And then a curb stop or something
public hearing?
Okay.
on the, I don't know if that's the east side or what it is, but.
Be the east side, and maybe something just a little bit looser, in case that's something that Neil wouldn't want, something just says delineate the east side.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about the east side.
Yeah, that's the east side.
Delineate the eastern boundary.
Just be my open suggestion in case Neil doesn't want curb stops.
Something.
Yeah, something.
And we'll speak to him after this meeting, just to get his take. He may be okay with curb stops, and we'll go with that.
I think we have somebody, Mr. Sheeb wants to speak again.
Mr. Sheedy.
We're getting a lot of free legal advice tonight.
I can't overcome urges, I apologize for that. Steve Sheevy, 111 South Railroad Street, Navasota, Texas. I'm all in favor of parking and increased parking, but there are lots of guides that are available from the government, and if you are a public employee, a public employer, quote, businesses and public entities making parking available for employees must provide accessible parking for employees with disabilities. It goes on to say, a business or government entity that provides employee parking must designate the required minimum number of accessible parking spaces consistent with applicable ADA regulations. There's all kinds of literature.
But this is an overflow lot, essentially.
It doesn't matter if they don't own it. In this case, again, my interest is in protecting the city, although I assume no duties as a lawyer to the city. If you got a lease, you hold a leasehold interest, and a suit-happy lawyer decides to sue, he's got two targets here, Mr. Martinson and the city, because they've got a leasehold interest, and that leasehold interest, the ADA rules apply. And with all due respect, I want them to comply, and I hope this parking comes to existence because that's a problem. But, there's the guide to ADA accessibility. That surface needs to be firm, stable, and slip resistant. And, this stuff is readily available. Most loose materials, including gravel, will not meet these requirements.
But if there's one spot for the 25.
I'm not giving any legal advice, but I would sure suggest you get some.
But you'd have to walk through potentially
It's the
loose
person in a
stuff.
wheelchair. It's the person who's on crutches. The notion that I'll just put a little concrete in this corner is going to satisfy it. Again, I'm not giving you legal advice, but I would surely encourage that you go talk to a lawyer. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to be sued, and I don't want to see you be sued. Then you get to the CBD stuff, and I won't go back through that, but and I hope I don't appear self-interested, but how many people that come into town see my parking lot? None. Everybody's gonna see this one. It's right across from City Hall. When you have your not birthday bash anymore, but whatever event downtown, like tomorrow night, don't you want that to be consistent with the CBD ordinances? So I want more parking. How can I help? Because I'm hindered by it, but I don't want to see you guys get sued. There's some legal obligations that you need to get some advice on. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And if I could just add my simple thought on that. I think you brought up a good point about the other agenda item, and does this fit Central Business District? Should there be some landscaping? We have heard many folks come in front of council that have said they want to put some sort of business in a residential area, and we say to them, you have to put landscaping around your parking lot so that we don't see your parked cars. This, to me, seems to fit kind of that same thing, so just to think
And
of that.
lighting, you know, I mean, I know city employees aren't necessarily here. You know, there's some that are working overtime, but it seems like there needs to be some lighting as well.
The use for this is 8 to 5.
8 to 5, okay. 8 to
Is the ADA parking compliance done by number of lots, number of spaces in a lot, or capacity of a building?
One for the first 25 spots. One spot for 25 parking spots.
So you can have a 20-space lot and you not be required to have an ADA?
It's the opposite direction. You can have
Only
You
one
can
at
have
a
a
minimum
26
with
lot
this one.
that would require 2. And now I'm saying lot. I'm not sure if that's per lot or if that's overall parking for City Hall.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's lots of overflow parking in places like Reliance Stadium or whatever they're calling it nowadays in the overflow. And what they do is they provide, considering all parking for that facility, they provide enough handicap or ADA compliance parking spots for that job of parking for employees at City Hall, of which we already have 4 around the building.
So is the total number of spaces, including that 4 would cover it?
I just did some quick calculating on Google Earth. I'll want to walk it before I say it, but it looks like we're right there. I may have to say we're only going to park 23, but we're right there.
Steve has it.
Sorry for interrupting. There are very specific regulations that would exactly the opposite of those in an umbrella. Facilities. Could you take some of the existing parking around the building and add handicap? All together?
We need to look at it, and it sounds like we need to talk with our lawyer, because by that interpretation, no. That interpretation is saying just straight by lot, but I really want to get my own eyes on that and et cetera, because that's not how I've seen it implemented in the real world. So I do want to look into that a little bit more. I'm not a accessibility lawyer myself.
You're an engineer.
Enough to be dangerous.
Okay, anything else?
We're still in the hearing?
Yeah, we're still in the public hearing.
Okay.
We will close the public hearing at 7:39 PM.
Should this be an item that's
Tabled.
That's what I was about to say.
until we can get clarification of
So,
the...
let me ask a question of Jason. Has legal looked at this?
The ordinance, they're currently reviewing it, but just the ordinance. I mean, legal's not gonna, review the site plan per ADA, but we'll have that conversation now, for sure.
So are you making Motion to table it.
Yes.
Have a motion from Commissioner Ketkowski to table this.
I second it.
A second from Commissioner
Hancock.
Commissioner Debbie, is that?
Debbie Hancock, I'm sorry.
You're on first name basis, Commissioner Debbie.
All in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Seeing none, motion carried. We're tabling it. And that brings us to agenda item number 7. Mr. Sheevey will be back up here again, I think.
I hope not, sir.
Consideration and possible action on a replat application submitted by Red Board LLC for the purpose of combining multiple lots in a portion of the Fraser right-of-way into a single platted lot to develop an O'Reilly Retail Auto Parts store. The property affected is located at 700 North LaSalle Street, Navasota, Grimes County, Texas 77868. Legally described as H&TC Block 9, lots 1 through 5 and half of Fraser Street.
Mr. Chairman, Planning and Zoning Commission, just to briefly summarize, the Planning and Zoning Commission approved the site plan for O'Reilly's in March of this year. The proposed replat is really just cleaning up all of those residual lots from that very historic subdivision and a section of Fraser Street to combine it all in one to be in compliance with all the development regulations before the new standalone store is built. Jared Regenbach is here representing the replat, as well as Mr. Sheevey. And the plat has been reviewed per applicable regulations, and it does meet all the requirements.
For some reason, I guess I felt like we did some of the replatting before, but maybe not.
Yeah, it's just.
So it was just the site plan, okay.
I recall the discussion about the drainage going under the street to the through the culvert to the ditch on the other side. Has that all been worked out and resolved to make sure that that's going to do what it needs to do?
Yeah, the construction actually hasn't started yet. The permit's not issued, and so that's something that once a contractor is on site, one of the things was to verify the condition of that culvert. And
exactly, because we weren't sure if it was cracked and it was just going to bleed into, yeah.
Yep, so no, the permit hasn't been issued yet, and that is something we'll coordinate once the construction starts, hopefully this year.
Move that we approve the replat application submitted by Red Board LLC for the purpose of combining multiple lots and a portion of the Fraser right-of-way into a single platted lot to develop an O'Reilly Auto Parts store. Property affected is located at 700 North LaSalle Street, Navasota, Grimes County, Texas 77868. Legally described as H&TC Block 9, Lot 1 through 5, and half of Fraser Street.
I have a motion from Commissioner Barcheck to approve the replat.
Second.
A second from Commissioner Kikoski. Any further discussion? Everyone is in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. And that brings us to agenda item number 8, consideration and possible action on a replat submitted by JCLB Investments LLC for the purpose of replatting a single 5.04 acre residential lot into 5 residential lot subdivision. The property affected is located along Dove Crossing Lane in Navasota, Grimes County, Texas 77868, legally described as Dove Crossing Block 7, Lot 3, acres 5.04.
Mr. Chairman, Planning and Zoning Commission, the preliminary plat for this project that showed 5 lots along Dove Crossing Lane, and 10 lots along an extension of White Wing. It was approved by Planning and Zoning Commission in October of last year. Since that time, the construction plans have been reviewed and approved by staff and our third-party engineer. Actually, this morning we had a semi-pre-con meeting for this particular phase. There's no infrastructure extensions necessary for this phase outside of just installing the service lines to each lot. This plat has been reviewed per applicable development regulations, and it does meet the requirements. And I believe Lee Burton is here. If y'all have any questions, she's a project owner.
So these would be like 1 acre lots?
No, these are a little over 8,000 to 9,000 square feet. So there will be 4. Originally, I think there was planned to be 5 individual lots. One of them is actually going to be a cluster mailbox area for these 4 and the other 10 lots. But here in particularly, it's only 4 single-family homes.
It's just confusing, 5.04 acres into 5 residential lots.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why, to me, it was like, oh, they're an acre each.
So it's not being divided into 5 residential lots, it's only 4.
5 residential lots, but only 4 will have construction.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
Right.
And what was it we did before?
It was the preliminary plat, which showed just the overall master layout. So the process is, once a preliminary plat is approved, the next step is all the construction plans are approved and reviewed. And so they're showing a detention pond to really accommodate this and the 10 lots that are going to be along White Wing. And these particular lots, they're specifically going to stay outside of the flood zone. So these homes are going to be adjusted to not be within that squiggly line you see there. That's the flood zone line. So total, it's, I guess, 14 lots
There was
with
something
these
like
4.
back here, wasn't there?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. An extension of White Wing, 5 on the north, 5 on the south. That'll be phase 2.
It's all coming back to me now.
Make a motion, we approve the replat submitted by JCLB Investments LLC for the purpose of replatting a single 5.04 acre residential lot into 5 residential lot subdivision. Property affected is located along Dove Crossing Lane in Navasota, Grimes County, Texas 77868, legally described as Dove Crossing Block 7, Lot 3, acres 5.04.
We have a motion from Commissioner Copeland to approve the replat.
I'll second.
Second from Commissioner Wisner. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Seeing none, motion carries. And that brings us to consideration and possible action on the meeting minutes for the August 1st, 2024 meeting.
The font's awful small now. It's
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes as presented for the August 1st meeting.
We have a motion to approve the minutes as presented from Commissioner Kikoski. A second from Commissioner Copeland. All in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Seeing none, motion carries. And we will adjourn this meeting at 7:49 p.m.